Howdy folks, Little John. Once again, I'm in the office. Well, once again, it's the same day as the vintage. It's the vintage tasting. Knocking out a second vid while I'm here, chopping on a little bit of beef jerky. Kicking back, enjoying what I can the last afternoon of a couple of days off. Midweek weekend, Thursday. Effectively Sunday, back to work tomorrow. Work 4 days through and do the midweek weekend next week. So anyway, cheers to all the Patreons. Always guys, great to have your support. And thank you very much. If you're interested in being a Patreon, finding out what it's about, hit the link down the bottom. Check it out, see if it's for you. There's a few extra bonuses, there's giveaways, there's shout outs. Things go on. The boys have just won some beers and some seasoning mix from the last video of doing the chili. So if you aren't subscribed to Little John, hit the button down there in the corner and get subscribed. Anyway, what I want to talk about today is volume of your brew day. The numbers that you need to work with from start to finish. From the start of your mash to the end where you actually got finished wort in your fermenter ready to put yeast on. Now this question was asked by, I think it was Gary Hogg on Little John's Facebook. Again, the link's down below. And he was asking more about like the relationship and calculating between your post boil and what you're getting in your fermenter. So I thought if I'm going to attack that, I might as well attack the whole thing in one go. I don't think I've actually addressed it anywhere on a video. I've talked about it plenty of times, but never really just done a set video on it. Now I'm not going to go through and show all the calculations. They're reasonably straightforward. So if you want to, you can go back and look at them. But I'm hoping that this video, alongside sitting down with some software, will help you understand what the software is asking for in the way of numbers. Or B, if you haven't not using software and you want to do it by hand, we'll give you the ability to do so. Calculating your volumes by hand is not hard. Calculating gravity is a whole different matter, and I'm not even going to try to get into that. I don't even want to bother with that. That's very fiddly. If you need to work out your volume and your actual gravities, use the software to do that. But just to understand what those volumes are, let me run through it. So you've got to work backwards. You've got to work out your volumes, you've got to go backwards. First thing you've got to know is where you want to finish at. So how much wort do you want in your fermenter? Now, standard batch is 23 litres. This is a number we grow up with and we're accustomed to coming from kits. And that's what they work out to, 23 litres. Why 23 litres? I don't really know. 23 litres in the fermenter will generally get you about 21 litres into bottles, about 2.5 cartons of stubbies, 60 long necks, well, 60 stubbies, about 30 long necks. So, I don't know. But that's the number. And whether you're working on 21 or 20, it doesn't matter. As long as you know what that number is, you can work back and work out where you need to start at. So we're working off 23 litres of our final volume into the fermenter. Now I'm working essentially at the moment just off using a Brewzilla or a Robo Brew for the actual numbers I'm quoting. But again, if you're using a different system, you need to adjust and let your numbers in. And I'll sort of touch on those a little bit as I go through. So generally, after you've gone through your whole process and you've done your boil and you've got your wort sitting there, you need, in your transfer, you're going to have some left behind in your kettle. There's trube, which you get left behind, and there's generally some amount of wort that's below the tap that you can't get out. Right? That is what's called kettle losses. In your worksheet, will be called kettle losses. Okay. On the Brewzilla, I just calculate that as 1 litre. That's pretty close what I'm getting. If that's allowing for me to give the Robo Brew a little bit of a tilt just to get a little bit extra off, but not dragging any, not really dragging any crud over. Once I start getting crud coming through to the fermenter, I stop. So I allow 1 litre. On top of that, you need to allow for cooling losses. And you'll see there's cooling losses. Most systems will automatically calculate that at 4% of the volume. And that's fairly accurate. Now, working backwards with percentages is a little fiddly, but here's a simple one with that. Allow 1 litre. In a 23 litre batch, allow 1 litre. Because that's pretty spot on. So you've got your 23 into your fermenter, your litre for trub, and a litre for your cooling losses. That's 25 litres. 4% of 25 is 1 litre. Alright? So set your cooling loss to 1 litre. So that means in your Robo Brew, you need to have 25 litres at the end of the boil. When the boil's finished, you need to have 25 litres of wort. Right. So you need to then work out, okay, well, what do I need to have before the boil? What's my pre-boil volume? Now, again, you'll find that most software will allow a generic boil-off calculation of 15%. You'll see, it'll say boil-off percentage, boil-off amount, and some will be in percent, some will be in litre, some will give you an option to do either. Now, when you're starting on your system, if you work with 15%, that's going to be reasonably close. Now that will vary depending on the ambient temperature, your height above sea level, the cleanliness of your power, your connection, how well your actual unit heats. That boil off may vary between 12 and 20%, but 15 is generally fairly close on that full size batch. So that means to get to your 25 litres post boil, you need to have 29.5 litres pre-boil. Okay, that's your 15%. That's about 4.5 litres. If you work off, if you calculate that from 30 litres, 15% is 4.5 at 30 litres. So it's in that ballpark. So pre-boil, you're wanting 29.5, 30 litres. So that's fine. To get from your pre-boil to your mash, it gets a little bit. You need to allow for grain absorption. So when you're doing your mash, an amount of the liquid is going to stay trapped in the grain. Okay. You'll see places where they'll talk about as much as 0.9 of a litre or 1 litre per gram of grain. I've never had that high grain absorption ever. I find it tends to be around about 0.6 of a litre per kilo. So if you've got a 5 kilo grain bill, you've got 3 litres of grain absorption. So your grain is going to soak up 3 litres of your mash water when you transfer to your boil kettle. So again, so you need to allow for that. Now, these numbers, as I said, are system specific. So depending on what sort of system you're using, and what sort of grain bill you're using, and what sort of mash you're using, what sort of mill settings you're using, the numbers will vary. And this is where it goes back to keeping an accurate record. Okay? Measure, keep a track of all your volumes through your mash and your boil, so you can calculate exactly what's happening in each part. So you can adjust the numbers if you need to. These numbers I'm giving you today are very much middle of the road, and if you run a batch on these numbers, you'll get pretty close. And if you don't, and you keep those numbers, you'll be able to adjust your settings to get it just right. Okay? So, as I said, 5 kilos, 3 litre grain absorption. So on my system, at a 29.5 litre pre-boil, so I need to mash with 32.5 litres. Now, and that's fairly standard. I know that's my system. On my brew 5 litre batch, I know I need to have 32 litres. And I normally start at 32 because that's about what it holds. I know it says it's a 35 litre, but you can get about 33, but yeah, run that mark. I prefer to start at 32 and be a litre under and have to top up a little bit to get my volume, then to start at 33 and come in a little bit high on the volume and then a bit low on the gravity and have to adjust gravity. I prefer to adjust gravity by having to add a little bit of water than maybe having to muck around adding malts or dextrose. So that's the run through. 32.5 litres is my mash amount. So that's where I start from. You know, of course you've got to split that between your mash and your sparge. And on a standard 3V system, you split your mash and sparge about 50-50, maybe 60-40, 60% mash, 40% sparge. On the Robo Brew, you generally tend to have to go the other way, where it's more like 40-60, because of the large space under the false bottom and under the malt pipe. You lose that in your actual mash. So, which is why you see the mash numbers for the Robo Brew or the Brewzilla or the Grain Farber, those sort of Guten, those sort of systems where you'll see 3 litres of water per kilo of grain, plus 4 to 5 litres to allow for that space under the malt pipe. So in this case, 5 kilo of grain, where a typical 3V system, you run 15 litres for your mash, and then you'd run 17 litres for your sparge. On your Robo Brew, you need to have your 15 litres and then add another 4.5 to that. So you need to bring it up to about 19.5 litres and leave yourself 13 litres of sparge with. But that's the simple breakdown of the mash and sparge. And I'll just throw this one in. This is a simple thing I've found with the Robo Brew for me. I do up my 33 litre mash water. I heat it up. I heat it to mash temperature, and then I pull off 10 or 11 litres and bring it down to 22. and then I'm mashing with that. And whether I've got 4.5 kilos or 5.5 kilos of grain, I just mash in with 22 litres of mash water and run from there. It's not for any specific reason, it's not for any scientific reason, it's just a number I use. I just find it works nicely. It will keep the wort down low enough that it's you're not extending the malt pipe or the overflow pipe any, and still gives you enough that you've got a nice circulation going on. Again, that is going to vary depending on what system you're using. If you're not using a rubber, if you're using a 50 litre pot, brew in a bag, then you don't need that. You can just mash in with whatever. Generally, if you're doing a brew in a bag, you've got to mash in with your full amount. But that number works. Same thing. If you're doing a full volume brew in a bag with no sparge at all, those numbers still work. You still work exactly the same way. The only difference is you don't split your mash water into a mash and a sparge. It's just a full mash. Yeah, maybe you hold 2 or 3 litres back to rinse your bag out after you pull it. But that's it. The other thing you do need to sort of be aware of, again depending on the system, is and you'll see it described as sparge dead space. Now, what that refers to, or my understanding of sparge dead space, is on your typical 3V system, it's the amount that's left in your kettle after the sparge when you drain off to the sparge. So it's what you leave behind. So it's, to some degree it fits in. It's almost like the trub in the robo brew at the very end. But that's a number you need to calculate into a 3V system to allow for it. So if you were using a 3V system, like say my 3V system had had 3 litres. I lost 3 litres below the tap at the end of the sparge. So on this scenario, with 32.5 litre batch, I would need that 3 litres. So I would need that 35.5 litres to get the same volume into the kettle. Same volume pre-boil. To get back that 25 litres, I needed that extra at the start. Okay. So as I said, stick the numbers into your system. Run your brew day. Keep a track of all your volumes and compare them. Keep the numbers. See exactly where they are. Then at the end of the day, when you go to your fermenter, and if you've ended up with 22 litres instead of 23, okay, you've lost a litre somewhere. Go back and work out where it is. You go back and go, okay, well I had me, if your post boil was 25 where it should have been, but you've only ended up with 22 in the fermenter, then where is it? How much is left in the boil kettle? Is it 2 litres instead of 1? Have you left too much behind there? Or did it just boil off harder and you've lost an extra litre there? So you've got to keep those numbers so you can work out exactly where it's happened. Yeah. If you don't have the numbers, you're never going to work it out, and you're going to constantly hit wrong places. If you get those numbers right, because the other and probably the most important factor in trying to get numbers correct, and this is coming back to gravity, on an all grain brew, is your efficiency. And if you can't get your volumes right, you're never going to get your efficiency right. Get these right, your efficiency is a piece of cake. Because once you've got that, you can punch that number in and it will give you an efficiency reading, an accurate efficiency. No good having that out of whack, because your efficiency is going to be all over the shop all the time. So my suggestion is, when you're doing a batch, if you can't get your numbers right, or you're starting out, or you're trying to lock yourself in, go back to the start. Go back to basics. Set your efficiency at 70%. Stick in your base numbers. Run your batch. Keep them track, and adjust them and see where they are. work on nothing more than getting your volumes correct. That's the first thing you've got to get right. Get your volumes correct. Doesn't matter if you're 10 points under or over gravity initially. You can make adjustments. You can adjust with water, you can adjust with dextrose, you can adjust with dry malt to get the numbers you want in the fermenter initially. Get your volumes correct. Once your volumes are correct, then you can start working on getting your efficiency number correct. You may need to pull it down to 63, you may need to pull up to 78. When I do small batches on my rabbit brew, I've got to pull my efficiency back to 58%. If it's a stout, if it's a darker brew, I've got to pull back to 53. Yeah. But I know that because I've got my volumes right. If I didn't have my volume right, I'd have no idea where to go with that. Okay? So, I hope that's cleared that up for everybody. Gary, I hope that's what you're after. Everybody, by the way, questions, comments, stick them down the bottom. If you aren't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. This is what we're doing. You're finding out all the important stuff you need to know. You get to watch me eat delicious jerky and drink some tasty beers. You might you might decide to be a patron. If you are, or you do, cheers and thank you. Links down there if you're interested. But that's me, Little John. Jerky, beer, mash and boil volumes. Easy, sorted. So until I see you again, we're brewing beer, drinking beer, talking beer, good brewing.